We did our smudge to welcome everybody, and I've given tobacco to our elder, Mike Wiggins Jr. to start us off with a prayer. And we also have our drummers, Dylan and Martin, and Nate, Danny, Jodan, who are going to start us off after the prayer, continue in a good way with a drum song for us. And then we'll go into our evening's presentation. We'll have, I'll give a short welcome with a little more info and background. We're going to have our natural resource staff present, and then we're going to close the night out with the talking circle. And so we'll get on to that. So at this time, I'm going to ask our elder to give his prayer and make which we'll use. This is our second meeting regarding Line 5 and the threat that the Enbridge oil pipeline represents for Bad River. In our first meeting, we had our staff, the Natural Resources Department, present to our own people. And it was a beautiful night. We had quite a few folks turn out. And that night was to introduce some of the concepts and some of the issues that we're looking at and facing to our own community as a chance to get feedback and to get insight from them as we move on in this journey of bringing in some of the issues to a wider audience. And so for that, for all of the visitors that have joined us tonight, I want to say thank you very much, Mike Wiggins, for attending. And I got a couple of acknowledgments that I want to begin with. And first of all, I'd like to acknowledge our tribal council. We have Lisa Corbine with us tonight, council member, Councilman Jay McPhee, our secretary, our treasurer, Etta Burns, our council member, our elder, Barb Smart. So, Vice Chairman Mike Berlin is here with us, and this guy right here by the drum, Councilman Dylan Jennings. So, and I'm probably missing somebody. Okay. Okay, but I want to definitely acknowledge our council. Working the last 2 years with this tribal council has been an honor. Everybody provides information and feedback, and just is really committed to trying to better this place and to improve the quality of life for our tribal people and to protect our environment and our resources. And so I definitely want to acknowledge our council and all their good work. And then I want to acknowledge all of our Bad River tribal elders that joined us tonight. From Joe Rose and his prayer and his long history of environmental protection. We have Butch Stone, our elder over here, who is one of my personal heroes. He and Jimmy LeGrew and many others at that time, years ago, stopped the train loads of sulfuric acid that were slated to come through the Bad River Reservation for the White Pine Mining Project. Butch and Jimmy LeGrew, and at that time John Wilmer and that old tribal council, and many others again stood up on the tracks, and as I can hear Tom Olson from Flambeau recalling their work, saying those Bad River tribal members that laid down on those tracks in front of that train, they stood there in front of those tracks, and one of the photos I carry on my phone with me all the time is Butch and Jimmy with the Eagle staffs with that train bearing right down on them. But they sent that sulfuric acid away, and at that time they sent that whole mining effort away, and so I want to acknowledge Butch and again all the elders that are here, because I could go right down the line and talk about how they're committed to protecting our home and talk about the efforts that they've made to try to help our people. So. I wanted to definitely acknowledge our elders and say welcome tonight. And then for in the crowd tonight, both tribal and non-tribal, it's just it's like water warrior after water warrior, and it's just so good to see so many familiar faces from our struggles resisting GTAC and the open pit mine above us. To all the water warriors that are here, I just want to say welcome. I recognize you, and it's just a beautiful thing to have you join us tonight for our discussion about Line 5. So, and we got some babies with us tonight too. We got some little ones, and it's just always beautiful to see the children and the babies join us because it helps remind us what it's all about, and in terms of all the work that we do. So, okay, so that was the acknowledgments, and I've probably already been talking too long, but I'll just say this. In the 50s, when Enbridge arrived, there was no consultation. It was before the consciousness of Indian sovereignty and rights and all of that stuff were in play. I always think of the 70s and the AIM movement and everything else that put us on the map, and Tribble Brothers and the Gurno decision and all those things. But in the 50s, essentially the BIA told Enbridge, gave Enbridge permission to run that line, and they ran it. Much the same way they ran US2 and all of that other stuff. In the 70s, the 20-year lease that was put forward expired, and the BIA just re-upped the lease for Enbridge in the 70s. In 1993, on trust parcels, on those governmentally held lands in trust for all of our people, the lease expired, 1993. And at that time, our council chose to re-enter into a 50-year lease agreement for $800,000. And there's certain language within that agreement that we today take issue with. But at any rate, that 50-year lease was signed in 1993. In 2013, another type of lease on the private parcels, the private property parcels within the Bad River Reservation expired. And through our land consolidation efforts, through our land buyback efforts, 11 out of those 15 parcels that came up in that expired lease, 11 of those 15 are owned by the Bad River Tribe. And on the back of those 11 out of 15 land parcels, in 2017, our tribal council passed a resolution rejecting the renewal of any easement to Enbridge for that pipeline. And so it's a little confusing at first glance once you maybe hear the details, but there's kind of two separate leases based off of land types that are in play. And to that, I'll just say, regardless of any lease, and as many of you probably know, and if you don't know, feel in your heart, regardless of any lease, the changing climatic conditions, the extreme flooding events that we're seeing more and more, and the way our river is moving and the way slopes are shifting, that line is under assault by our environment. The very water and the very soil and clay of our reservation is in active rejection of that pipe. The Bad River Reservation, our home, is actually saying Gaween. It's saying, no, go away. And so the other part of that is that way back in the 50s, things were a little different in the oil industry. And we are in a time right now where I always think of Winona LaDuke, we are in the extreme end days of the fossil fuel era, and these are very dangerous times. But things like fracking and the Alberta tar sands and those types of things are underway. And so the very product that is getting piped through that Enbridge Line 5 has changed significantly. And there's industry words that are meant to couch what's really happening. And so when they talk about their product, they like to use the term light sweet crude, as though it's light and it's sweet, right? But the light sweet crude that they used to characterize their product as was a type of oil that, if spilled, would float on the water, and they would throw booms to catch it. That product has changed, and there's more of a benzene type product that's heavier, that's from the tar sands, that's from fracking, that sinks to the bottom of waterways and things like that. But their product and the way they're approaching the whole industry has completely altered. All of that stuff has gotten more extreme, more hurtful to the earth, more dangerous for our reservation, and it's never been reflected in any type of agreements or any type of monitoring or any type of protection that has any amount of integrity. It's just been business as usual as they've gone more and more extreme to make their money. And so we'll hear a little bit about some of the threats that are underway within our reservation from our staff here. But I wanted to give that much history to give some context to how we got to today, how we got to this place in time, thinking back on when Enbridge first arrived. It's just a little bit of information. And so I'll say this, we're going to give, and I'll turn it over to my staff in a moment, we're going to give that technical presentation about what's happening, and there's other things to talk about. And so we have other meetings in July that we're already scheduling to come back together. Things like grassroots efforts. We would love for anyone that would want to go visit some of the sites that you're going to hear about tonight, to do the field trip and to go into the interior of our reservation to see firsthand some of the things that we're talking about, and then maybe at that time put a little tobacco down and stuff like that. It's not just like the mining struggle, and I always think of Mole Lake, Sakaga and Mole Lake. Robert Van Zyl saying, we fought that mine over in Mole Lake for 25 years, he said. He goes, but what they don't understand is 25 years is a blink of an eye to Anishinaabe. He says, we would have fought that mine for 1,000 years. He goes, and his gentle reminder was essentially, it's not a sprint, and there's not a magic button, and I think most of the folks in here understand that. It's going to be a journey that we start to protect our home and our water, and as we continue on that journey, we'll be getting together again and again and again to talk about things that are going to be evolving. And hopefully in future meetings, we have the United Tribes from Michigan here. Maybe we can dream dreams. Maybe the governor of Michigan and the attorney general were actively engaged in trying to defend the Mackinac Straits. Maybe they'll come over, or maybe we'll go over there. But eventually, we're going to start that line, in a metaphoric sense, we're going to start that line on fire all over the place, and as we look to get it out of the ground and protect ourselves. So I just I'll say that much. Again, welcome everybody. I got great Natural Resources Department staff, and they're going to present tonight. I want to say thank you to all the Natural Resources staff, and to Flo and all the others that did all the setup and got snacks for you and everything. There's a lot of thank yous. I'll probably spend the rest of the night thanking everybody, but